Joining us now is a man who spent 16 years at the club and was on the pitch when they won their first title in 2012. It's just that he wasn't playing for City at the time. He was playing for QPR. To discuss this and his new book, Kicking Back, which is out now, Nedum Ohouha is joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, Nedum.
Good morning, everyone. Looking forward to this.
Hey, we're looking forward to having you on. First of all, congratulations. I've got your book in front of me. That's quite a feat, isn't it? Writing a book in general. How was it for you? Because did it kind of open up a lot of memories, and was it cathartic in a way? What was it like?
Yeah, it did open up a lot of memories. And to be honest, I never really had a plan to do one. But when I was speaking with Hugh Ferris, who's the ghostwriter for the book, he was asking me, why not? And as Gabby will attest to, and I'm sure Ian will as well, when you're in the media, you're constantly telling stories, you're offering little bits of insight. So kind of sharing it on a week-to-week basis anyway. So then when he said, well, how about we do this and we do it this way? Because it's a sort of non-traditional style book, because it's not fully chronological. Certain aspects are in there that matter, say, for the early years of my career, but you might jump from, say, year one of my career and then it's spoken about again 3 chapters further along. So it was really good. And with Hugh, we sat down, spent a lot of time together talking about certain things, and you start to remember some of those moments. And it's easy in this position to know who you are and remember some of the key events that made you who you are, but it's the little things sometimes. And I think all that stuff makes a difference. Like even Ian's in the book as well for some of the things that he said, and
good things.
Really good things. I don't know if you remember, Ian, but we were doing a pre-season and you wanted 3 people up front and never 4. Like I always remember 3 people up front, never 4. And we worked on it every single day. But the reason we did that is because we kept getting it wrong. And the way you described it was magnificent. And to this day, I will never forget it. You said it's like you've got this new swimming pool and you fill it up. And then when you go to bed and wake up in the morning, it's empty again. And I thought that's absolutely brilliant. And that sort of thing there, it's a good way to describe, say, what we kind of were at QPR at the time. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun writing, and I'm very proud of it.
A swimming pool with a hole in.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Was it something as well, Nedum, writing a book that it's something that your kids can read, even now or when they grow up? Was that something that was behind it? And also, was there stuff that you was weary of putting in the book? Because that's always the case with people that write books. Like, you wouldn't put stuff in that, might stitch up an ex-player or something.
Yeah. I think from the kid's standpoint, so my oldest daughter, she's 8 years old. And when the book first arrived at my house, I was sitting down and she was reading it. And I thought, this feels weird. It feels weird for her to be reading about her dad before she was around. But in terms of the book itself, like, I'd prefer if she was a bit older, if she just does decide to read it, because there's some very strong themes in there. And there's stuff which, I want to teach her further down the road, but she will read it. And in regards to sort of stitching people up, like Gabby, yourself, and Ian, yourself, it's not a case of stitching people up sometimes. It's just that I think throughout your career, just because you've been quiet doesn't mean you don't have something to say. Yeah. There's so much that goes on a day-to-day basis at training grounds, just involved in football. And sometimes you just don't say anything. But now that I'm retired, I'm very comfortable with sort of my own situation. I think it's time to sort of share the truer experiences, because, we've seen and we've read those books of people who've won 20 trophies and stuff like that, and they are incredible. But that's not the general story of people who play the game that we play. And I think my one represents more people like that.
Well, I can remember you helping another player who was in trouble.
Yeah.
And I did something really unusual. I held a meeting of senior players and senior staff and me and this player who was letting himself down, and I asked the lads to tell him what they think, and I believe Nedum was brave enough to tell him the truth. And I feel that fella benefited from it. I'm not naming names, but you were brave enough to do that, Nedum, and I think you got what I was trying to do, because people in dressing rooms can hide because they start talking about someone else, and those sort of dressing rooms kill people, don't they? And you hate
for
that,
sure.
don't you?
Yeah, and I can say, like, from experience and, working with you, like, your intent is so good. I don't think everybody always understood you from the get-go, but in time, you always figure it out. And I think, to be fair, like, it was a lot of fun working under you, because you had the best interest of everybody, and that's not a normal thing. I'm sure Gabby would attest to that as well. Like, to have a manager who wants to do something differently, who wants to do stuff the right way, and is passionate about the football club. We take those sorts of things for granted, but essentially it's not actually that common.
Nedum, tell us about some of the other things that are in the book, because I imagine as well there's going to be a fair bit of focus on what was happening when you were on the pitch, the Aguero moment,
Yeah.
what it was like. What was it like as players?
It's ridiculous. It's just like, it's a truly ridiculous day. And to be honest, myself and other people who say, like John Lesko, who's playing for City on the other side, like, we don't watch that game back because it's too stressful. Like, everyone knows how it goes, but it's too stressful. And when we look back at the game, people talk about that moment where Martin Tyler's shouting Aguero. But for us as players on the field, like, we didn't have that coverage. I just remember thinking, we've gone down, and I thought it was my fault because I had the throw-in and we lost the ball, and they came up the other end and scored. So I thought I just relegated my team in my old stadium, and it was crazy. It was one of the wildest games, obviously in Premier League history, and just it's a privilege to say that I was part of it. But then in the same breath, like, I support City, but I didn't celebrate that league title. I just celebrated staying up because that's who I am. That's how important that was for me. So there's stuff in there about that. There's stuff about the takeover. There's stuff about going to QPR and the sort of transitions that were going on there. Stuff about being in the USA in 2020, which was quite an experience. And overall, just, an expression of some really key and important times within football and how it's perceived from the inside, as opposed to just the way we talk about it from the outside sometimes.
talkSPORT Breakfast with Laura Woods, Monday to Wednesday mornings 6 till 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.